Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rakshamam. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Pahimam. Go for the downbeat. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. 3, 2, 1. Krishna! Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. We're continuing our reading of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. We've arrived at chapter 5, the activities of Sākṣi-gopāla. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary of the 5th chapter in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. After passing through Yajapur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached the town of Cuttack, and there went to see the temple of Sākṣi-gopāla. While there, he heard the story of Sākṣi-gopāla from the mouth of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Once there were 2 brahmanas, one elderly and the other young, who were inhabitants of a place known as Vidyanagara. After touring many places of pilgrimage, the two brahmanas finally reached Vrindavan. The elderly Brahmin was very satisfied with the service of the young Brahmin, and he wanted to offer him his youngest daughter in marriage. The young Brahmana received the promise of his elder before the Gopal deity of Vrindavan. Thus the Gopal deity acted as a witness. When the 2 brahmanas returned to Vidyanagara, the younger Brahmana raised the question of this marriage. But the elderly Brahmin, due to obligations to his friends and wife, answered that he could not remember his promise. Because of this, the younger Brahmana returned to Vrindavan and narrated the whole story to Gopalji. Thus Gopalji, being obliged by the young man's devotional service, accompanied him to southern India. Gopalji followed the younger Brahmana, who could hear the tinkling sound of Gopalji's ankle bells. Gopalji tested who refused to give him his daughter in marriage and called him a sweeper of Lord Jagannath. With the help of Lord Jagannath, King Purushottam Dev fought the king of Cuttack and defeated him. Thus he took charge of both the king's daughter and the state of Cuttack as well. At that time, Gopalji, being very much obliged by the devotional service of King Purushottam Dev, was brought to the town of Cuttack. After hearing this narration, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Gopal in great ecstasy of love of God. From Cuttack he went to Bhuvaneshwar and saw the temple of Lord Shiva. In this way, he gradually arrived at Kamalapur, and on the banks of the Bargi river, he came to the temple of Lord Shiva, where he entrusted his sannyas staff to Nityananda Prabhu. However, Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 pieces and threw it into the Bargi river at a place known as Ataranala. Being angry at not getting his staff back, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu left the company of Nityananda Prabhu and went alone to see the Jagannath temple. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahmanya Dev, who appeared as Sākṣi-gopāla to benefit a Brahmana. Walking on his own legs, he traveled for 100 days through the country. Thus his activities are wonderful. All glories to Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Walking and walking, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his party finally arrived at Yajapur on the river Vaitarani. There he saw the temple of Varahadev and offered his obeisances unto him. In the temple of Varahadev, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in the temple. Afterwards, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Cuttack to see the temple of the witness Gopal. When he saw the deity of Gopal, he was very much pleased by his beauty. While there, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, and being overwhelmed, he offered many prayers to Gopal. That night, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the temple of Gopal, and along with all the devotees, he heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. Previously, when Nityananda Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he had come to see Sākṣi-gopāla at Cuttack. At that time, Nityananda Prabhu had heard the story of Sākṣi-gopāla from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. The Sākṣi-gopāla temple is situated between the Bhuvaneshwar Khurda Road Junction railway station and the Jagannath Puri station. The deity is not presently situated in Cuttack, but when Nityananda Prabhu traveled there, the deity was present. Cuttack is a town in Orissa situated on the Mahanandi River. When Sākṣi-gopāla was brought from Vidyanagara in southern India, he stayed for some time in Cuttack. Thereafter, he was situated for some time in the Jagannath temple. It seems that the temple of Jagannath there was that in the temple there was some disagreement between Jagannath and Sākṣi-gopāla, a disagreement called Prema Kalaha, a quarrel of love. In order to settle this love quarrel, the king of Orissa constructed a village about 11 miles from Jagannath Puri. The village was called Satyavadi, and Gopal was stationed there. Thereafter, a new temple was constructed. Now there is a Sākṣi-gopāla station, and people go to Satyavadi to see the witness Gopal. That reminds me of in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and it's mentioned how Mother Sachi's deities, Krishna and Balaram, she had a dream and they were fighting with Nitai and Gaur. And Nitai and Gaur, they would say, see all these sweets, these are ours, and you can't touch them. And they're saying, if you try to, then we'll convince you by beating. And they were arguing back and forth in Mother Sachi's dream. And Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya were saying, this is our age, you get out of here now. And when Sachi woke up, she told Nimai about it and said, oh, your deities are very potent. Formerly at Vidyanagara in South India, there were 2 Brahmanas who made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayag. Finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhana hill. They visited all 12 forests, vanas, and at last came to the town of Vrindavanam. Purport: the 5 forests situated on the eastern side of the river Jamuna are Bhadra, Bilva, Loha, Bandira, and Mahavana. The 7 forests situated on the western side of the Jamuna are Madhu, Tala, Kamuda, Bahula, Kamya, Kadira, and Vrindavan. After visiting all these forests, these pilgrims went to a place known as Panchakroshi, Vrindavan. Out of the 12 forests, the Vrindavan forest extends from the town of Vrindavan up to Nandagram and Varshana, a distance of 32 miles, within which the Panchakroshi Vrindavan town is situated. In the village of Panchakroshi, Vrindavan, at the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there is a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopal was performed. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Jamuna, such as Keshi Ghat and Kaliya Ghat, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. Out of the 2 brahmanas was an old man, and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old one. Indeed, the young brahmana always rendered service to the older one, and the old man, being very satisfied with his services, was pleased with him. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You have assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage. Even my own son does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. If I did not show you any respect, I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise to give you my daughter in charity." The younger brahmana replied, "My dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Such a thing never happens. You are a most aristocratic family man, well educated and very rich, and I am not at all aristocratic, and I am without a decent education and have no wealth." Purport: due to pious activities, one can be enriched by 4 opulences. One may obtain birth in an aristocratic family, become highly educated, become very beautiful, or get a sufficient quantity of riches. These are symptoms of pious activities performed in one's past life. In India, it is still current for an aristocratic family never to consider a marriage with a common family. Though the caste may be the same, to maintain the aristocracy, such marriages are rejected. No poor man will dare marry the daughter of a rich man. Because of this, when the elderly brahmana offered the young brahmana his daughter, the young brahmana did not believe that it would be possible to marry her. Therefore, he asked the elderly brahmin why he was proposing something unprecedented, a sambhava. It was unheard of for an aristocratic person to offer his daughter to a person who is both uneducated and poor. "Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna." Purport: both brahmanas were pure Vaishnavas. The younger man took special care of the older one simply to please Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11:19-21, Krishna says, "Mad bhakta pujabhyadika." It is better to render service to my devotee. Thus, according to the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, it is better to be a servant of the servant of God. One should not try to serve Krishna directly. A pure Vaishnava serves a servant of Krishna and identifies himself as a servant of Krishna. This is pleasing to Lord Krishna. Srila Narottam Das Thakur confirms this philosophy. Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keba. Unless one serves the liberated Vaishnava, he cannot attain liberation by directly serving Krishna. He must serve the servant of Krishna. Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keba. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. Purport. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that the younger brahmana rendered service to the older one with the purpose of pleasing Krishna. It was not a matter of ordinary worldly dealings. Krishna is pleased when a Vaishnava is rendered service. Because the younger brahmana served the older one, Lord Gopal agreed to become a witness of the marriage negotiation in order to maintain the prestige of both devotees. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would certainly not have liked to hear about marital dealings unless such dealings were exchanged between two Vaishnavas. Marriage arrangements and ceremonies belong to the ordinary material karmakanda sections of the scriptures. The Vaishnavas, however, are not interested in any kind of karmakanda dealings. Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Karmakanda Jnanakanda Kevala Vishera Bandha. For a Vaishnava, the Karmakanda and Jnanakanda sections of the Vedas are unnecessary. Indeed, a real Vaishnava takes these sections as a poison pot, Vishera Bandha. Sometimes we take part in a marriage ceremony for our disciples, but this does not mean that we are interested in karmakanda activities. Sometimes, not knowing the Vaishnava philosophy, an outsider criticizes such activity, maintaining that a sannyasi should not take part in a marriage ceremony between a young boy and a young girl. However, this is not a karmakanda activity, because our purpose is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. We are giving all facility to the general populace to take to Krishna consciousness, and in order to fix the devotees in concentration on the service of the Lord, marriage is sometimes allowed. We have experienced that such married couples actually render very important service to the mission. Therefore, one should not misunderstand when a sannyasi takes part in a marriage ceremony. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu took great pleasure in hearing about the marriage ceremony between the young brahmana and the daughter of the elderly brahmana. The older brahmana replied, "My dear boy, do not doubt me. I will give you my daughter in charity. I have already decided this." The young brahmana said, "You have a wife and sons, and you have a large circle of relatives and friends. Without the consent of all your friends and relatives, it is not possible to give me your daughter in charity. Just consider the story of Queen Rukmini and her father, Bhishmaka. King Bhishmaka wanted to give his daughter Rukmini in charity to Krishna, but Rukmini, the eldest son, his eldest son, objected. Therefore, he could not carry out his decision. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.52.25, Bandhunam michatam dhatum krishnaya bhaginim nirpa tato nivaraya krishna dvid rukmi chaidyam amanyata. King Bhishmaka of Vidarbha wanted to offer Lord Krishna his daughter, Rukmini, but Rukmi, the eldest of the 5 sons, objected. Therefore, Bhishmaka withdrew his decision and decided to offer Rukmini to the king of Chedi, Shishupal, who is a cousin of Krishna's. However, Rukmini conceived of a trick. She sent a letter to Krishna asking him to kidnap her. Thus, in order to please Rukmini, who was his great devotee, Krishna kidnapped her. There ensued a great fight between Krishna and the opposing party, headed by Rukmini's brother Rukmi. Rukmi was defeated, and because of his harsh words against Krishna, was about to be killed, but he was saved at the request of Rukmini. However, Krishna shaved off all of Rukmi's hair with his sword. Sri Balaram did not like this, and so, to please Rukmini, Balaram rebuked Krishna. The elderly Brahmin said, "My daughter is my own property. If I choose to give my property to someone, who has the power to stop me? My dear boy, I will give my daughter to you in charity, and I will neglect the position of all others. Don't doubt me in this regard." The younger Brahmana replied, if you have decided to give your young daughter to me, then say so before the Gopal deity. Coming before Gopal, the elderly Brahmin said, "My dear Lord, please witness that I have given my daughter to this boy." Purport. In India, it is still the custom for a daughter to be offered to someone simply by word. This is called Vagdatta. This means that the father, brother, or guardian of a girl has given his word that she will be married to a certain man. Consequently, that daughter cannot be married to anyone else. She is reserved by virtue of the honest words of the father or guardian. There are many instances in which parents of a female child have given someone a verbal promise that their daughter will be married to his son. Both parties agree to wait until the boy and girl are grown up, and then the marriage takes place. Following this custom, which is very old in India, the elderly Brahmana promised to give his daughter to the younger Brahmana in charity, and he promised this before the Gopal deity. In India, the custom is to honor any promise made before the deity. Such a promise cannot be cancelled. In India villages, whenever there is a quarrel between two parties, they go to a temple to settle the quarrel. Whatever is spoken in front of the deity is taken to be true, for no one would dare lie before the deity. This same principle is followed in the Battle of Kurukshetra. Therefore, in the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Dharmakshetra Kurukshetre, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre. By not becoming God conscious, human society is deteriorating to the lowest standard of animal life. This Krishna consciousness movement is very essential to reviving God consciousness among the general populace. If people actually become God conscious, all quarrels can be settled outside of court, as happened in the case of the two Brahmanas whose disagreement was settled by the witness of Gopal. So what did you hear in the last section? Which thing stuck? Caught you off guard, eh? 1, 2.
How in the story it begins like he was assisting the elder Brahman without any expectation. And when he asked, he told that I'm doing it to please Krishna, and Prabhupada clarifies in the purport that even though some of the activities it looks mundane, but if it is done to please Krishna is in the is in the same category.
Yeah.
In one way you can just say that you're just assisting, taking here, there, and it can take as a material service, but then he...
Thank you. Achinta Caitanya Prabhu.
Prabhupada makes the point that how in those days society was very what do you call it? I mean, to paraphrase it, that aristocracy, there is a division of aristocracy even among the same caste, even though they may be brahmanas. So then they would not consider marriage from, even though they're the same caste, from a lower status.
Well, I guarantee it's the same now too. Ekachakra.
I noticed that the younger Brahmana very intelligently understood the situation from the very beginning. At first he was asking, "Are you serious?" He gave the whole situation of why it is very unlikely. And then when the older Brahmana assured him, he then asked him to speak it before the deity. So I think he played it very well.
Yeah, and it's indicative of the culture of the time too, that the deity had the last word, or those who spoke before the deity considered that was the ultimate adjudication of the situation, because they would not lie before the deity.
Doesn't that apply now also?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was contemplating the point of association, how because I've heard this section before, thinking of how when he goes back to the association of his family members and he goes back on his word. Although in the holy place on pilgrimage he was feeling one way, but then
100%.
He forgot.
It's politics, family politics. They threatened to, especially his wife, to commit suicide. That was a technique used. We hear about it in different places. Okay, but I'm going to commit suicide if you do this. Govardhana, you had a point?
The introduction the summary that we read in the beginning of each chapter is like Prabhupada himself has given that summary, or
I'd have to research that to find out if he wrote all the summaries or if he had his staff working on them.
But one thing I noticed that how and he most of the time he quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur has done this like summarizing the whole chapter. I think most of the taken from his
Amrita Prabhava Bhashya. Mahendra Prabhu?
It seems the young Brahmana was not interested in the daughter. In a way, he didn't get excited. Oh yeah, but it seems felt obligated because the older Brahmana said, "I will be ungrateful. You rendered so much service, and please accept this gift." And then he was, felt that he had to accept this, but he thought, well, that will be a trouble when we go back. But still, he made this arrangement.
You could even say he was trying to protect the elderly person, because he already spoke it, and now he wanted to assure that he would be able to carry out what he had said and not become a liar.
Yeah. And I mean the statement of the older Brahmana, how if some modern reader asks, what does it mean, how do you explain it, that he says, she's my daughter, she's my property, I could do with her anything I like.
Yeah.
That sounds like, especially in the West nowadays, what do we say if somebody asks?
Well, how's the West doing these days? I mean, there's so many cultures where there was these various conceptions. In Scandinavian countries, although more in ancient times, not modern times, obviously, that the children were considered to be the property of the parents. They could even kill them with impunity because they were considered property. And it's always complex when you try to transfer the moral standards, mores, from one era to another, because there are a lot of different circumstances. If you oversimplify and just say it's like this or like that, and that it's immorality, then you may be overgeneralizing. So it takes a little but what to say to somebody in that? Kind of what I'm saying now, but going into more detail about the culture and what it was like and things like that. It's most people are impervious to the explanation, however. Yeah.
I think when they use these kind of expressions, it's more nuanced than the literal sense of it. For example, in Vedic culture, when they say property, this means something very valuable to them. So then they make proper decisions with valuable things. So there are certain nuanced
It won't pass the Oprah test, though, which is like, here's explain yourself on national television. Prabhu? I agree with you, but I'm saying that they're impervious to such things.
I appreciate it. I makes the point that it's very important to Krishna, the service to the Brahmanas, or Vaishnava Seva, and then thus pleases Krishna. When Krishna is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases.
Yeah. Quite noticeably. And that relates to the point that somebody made earlier about Yayatama Prapadyate, I think Akshobhyatirtha, Prabhu had mentioned, because Krishna is reciprocating with the devotees' service mood, and it becomes obvious to the devotee, and becomes obvious to everybody else. You can see Madhavendra Puri, everyone can see. And look at Prabhupada, how Krishna reciprocated with his vyavasayatmika bhuti towards the spiritual master. Okay, Nanda.
In one sense, it could be summed up by saying
It means what?
In one sense, it could be summed up.
No, I'm asking what it is. It's a placeholder.
Just the circumstance could be summed up by saying their word was their bond.
Right, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting that I was just writing something about that and researching in that genre, linguistics, about different kinds of speech that linguists have defined over times. Some of empowered speech, authorized speech, and so forth, that when you say something, then in certain contexts, just by your words, it manifests, has to come true. Like a judge who's duly appointed and is passing a sentence and says, you're awarded $1 million, you get $1 million because the judge said it. Not in ordinary circumstances, if they're not empowered and they're just standing at the 7-Eleven and you walk out the door, you just kind of think they're crazy and get in your car. But if it's in the courtroom and they've been empowered by the state to make a decision, then you get that. And brahmanas were especially held to their word. When they spoke, that's one of the hallmarks of a brahmana, is they always tell the truth. So that was extra pressure, because your word is your bond. Thank you, Nanda. Yes, we have more hands up and more stuff.
These are from the online audience.
Yes.
I have Garrison B. He says, have some service I have to do here in the States, or I would humbly take you up on the offer to fly on over to Sri Govardhana.
Did I make such an offer? Okay.
And we have Grace. She says, Hare Krishna, yes, we want to fly over. I wish. Thank you so much for broadcasting. We are so blessed to watch.
Jai.
And I have one from Sri Antariksha Prabhu. He quotes, Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. This is Madhya 5.24. What is the meaning of the phrase, the opulence of one's devotional service increases?
That you could look at Prabhupada's opulence. I heard him this morning saying, show me where in history someone came to a foreign country with 40 rupees and ended up with 40 crores coming in every month. He said it's not possible. And I mean, that's just one example, but that's the kind of opulence. Prabhupada's expansion to every continent of the world within a very short amount of time. It's obvious even to mundaners that this is extraordinary. In fact, Prabhupada was listed in an article in a segment about those late bloomers, people who had done extraordinary things in the world at an advanced age. So people recognize that. And that's kind of opulence of one's Krishna expansion, the opulence of one's devotional service. One's able to do more than one could imagine. Even the person, him or herself, can imagine. Yes, Prabhu.
There is a funny anecdote with Prabhupada when you mentioned this 40 rupees to 40 crores. Prabhupada is on the roof of Juhu, and then one of his disciples, Manmohan Prabhu, and also somebody else, they come they come and offer obeisances to him. And Prabhupada says, "Oh, the businessman has come." And then Manmohan Prabhu replies that, "No, I am not the businessman. You are the businessman. See what you did with 40 rupees, you made a big business." And then Prabhupada replies, "So why don't you join my business?"
Madhav.
I had a question, like not specifically for this chapter, but generally.
Okay.
That Prabhupada, many times he says, like, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he quotes the verse. And then, like, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's also so many other books. And even though it's Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like 10th canto, 52nd chapter and all. So how did Prabhupada, like, know all these verses? And, like, it's not only from Bhagavatam, it's from many books, like Krishna, I think other books. There was no phone or stuff to just search up stuff.
Well, first of all, Prabhupada knew a lot of verses, and he was Shastra Sunipana because he had, well, I don't want to say from, I've always one thought I've had was, I wish I could be clairvoyant and observe, as in a movie or something like that, the life of Prabhupada and where and how he studied and where they came. And obviously, one who's engaged in devotional service is empowered with knowledge. Prabhupada dedicated his life to hearing and chanting. And because of that, he knew these verses. But also, when Prabhupada was writing, he had reference material in front of him. So when he's writing Srimad Bhagavatam, he had a book in Bengali that has commentaries of multiple acharyas summarized in front of him. And so when he's holding the dictaphone and you see a big red covered book on his desk and he's looking at it, so he reads the verse, then he looks at all the commentaries, and you can pick up what other acharyas have said. For instance, in the first canto, second verse, Dharma Projita Kaitava, the verse ends in Sadyo Hridya Varudite Trakriti Bishu Shushuvish Takshanat. And there's a commentary on that from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who refers to 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 55th verse, which is Vikriditam Raja Vadur. No, that's not it. That's another verse. It's a Ristrijati Hridayam Nayasya Sakshat Darir Avasha Abhihito Pyagoganasha Pranaya Rasana Dritangri Padma. And that verse relates to the other one. So that was given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he would see these things quoted by previous acharyas giving the context of these, and he would also include them in, but not always. Prabhupada also gave his own references and citations based on his extensive understanding of Shastra and his empowerment from Krishna, who is speaking to him within his heart, saying, say this and say that, and he was writing. There's a verse, Aham Vedmi Sukho Veti, Vyasa Veti Naveti Va, Bhaktim Bhagavatam Grayam Na Budhaya Na Chatikaya. You know that verse? It says, it's talking about how Vyasa Veti, how did it start? Aham Veti Sukho Veti, I know, I think Shiva's speaking, I know, Aham Veti Sukho Veti, Shukadev knows, Vyaso Veti Naveti Va. Vyas may or may not know. Because there's a couple meanings to that. One is that one meaning has been expressed by other acharyas, is that the knowledge comes through as they're conduits, and they're speaking about this, and he may or may not know. In the context of Vyasadeva as being a grihastha, he may or may not have realized all this they're saying. But of course he's the incarnation of Krishna's literal incarnation. Did that help? Okay. All right, we'll just stand up and say Go Ranga. Go time. Una más. Thank you, everyone. And now we are continuing. My dear boy, I will give my daughter to you in charity, and I will neglect the position of all others. Don't doubt me in this regard. Just accept my proposal. The younger Brahmana replied, if you have decided to give your young daughter to me, then say so before the Gopal deity. Coming before Gopal, the elderly Brahmin said, my dear Lord, please witness that I have given my daughter to this boy. In India, it is still the custom for a daughter to be offered to someone simply by word. Did I read this? Yes, I did. Text 33. Then the younger Brahmana addressed the deity, saying, my dear Lord, you are my witness. I shall call for you to testify if it is necessary later on. After these talks, the two Brahmanas started for home. As usual, the young Brahmana accompanied the elderly Brahmin as if the older Brahmin were a guru, spiritual master, and rendered him service in various ways. After returning to Vidyanagar, each Brahmana went to his respective home. After some time, the elderly Brahmana became very anxious. He began to think, I have given my word to a Brahmana in a holy place, and what I promised will certainly come to pass. I must now disclose this to my wife, sons, and other relatives and friends. Thus, one day, the elderly Brahmin called for a meeting of all his relatives and friends, and before them all, he narrated what had taken place in front of Gopal. When those who belonged to the family circle heard the narration of the old Brahmana, they made exclamations showing their disappointment. They all requested that he not make such a proposal again. They unanimously agreed, if you offer your daughter to a degraded family, your aristocracy will be lost. When people hear of this, they will make jokes and laugh at you. The elderly Brahmin said, how can I undo the promise I made in a holy place while on pilgrimage? Whatever may happen, I must give him my daughter in charity. The relatives unanimously said, if you give your daughter to that boy, we shall give up all connection with you. Indeed, his wife and sons declared, if such a thing happens, we shall take poison and die. The elderly Brahmana said, if I do not give my daughter to the young Brahmana, he will call Sri Gopalaji as a witness. Thus, he will take my daughter by force, and in that case, my religious principles will become meaningless. His son replied, the deity may be a witness, but he is in a distant country. How can he come to bear witness against you? Why are you so anxious over this? You do not have to flatly deny that you spoke such a thing. There is no need to make a false statement. Simply say that you do not remember what you said. That's where it all started. If you simply say, I do not remember, I shall take care of the rest. By argument, I shall defeat the young Brahmana. Purport. By that I meant people do that all the time now. It's like a legal dodge, because if you, under oath, if you lie, then you can be prosecuted for it. But if you say you can't remember. But there's also a legal theory called willful ignorance, that you're purposefully claiming ignorance even though you know. And if that comes to the surface in the case, then the person can be prosecuted anyway for being willfully ignorant. Purport. The son of the elderly Brahmana was an atheist and follower of the Raghunath Smriti. He was very expert in dealing with pounds, shillings, and pence, but he was fool number one. Consequently, he did not believe in the spiritual position of the deity, nor did he have any faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, as a typical idol worshipper, he considered the form of the Lord to be made of stone or wood. Thus he assured his father that the witness was only a stone deity and was not capable of speaking. Besides that, he assured his father that the deity was situated far away and consequently could not come to bear witness. In essence, he was saying, have no anxiety. You do not have to lie directly, but you should speak like a diplomat, like King Yudhishthira when he spoke to Dronacharya, Ashvatthama hata iti gajaha. Following this principle, simply say that you do not remember anything and are completely unaware of the statements given by the young Brahmana. If you make the background like this, I shall know how to fill the argument and defeat him by word jugglery. Thus I shall save you from having to give your daughter to him. In this way our aristocracy will be saved. You have nothing to worry about. When the elderly Brahmin heard this, his mind became very much agitated. Feeling helpless, he simply turned his attention to the lotus feet of Gopal. The elderly Brahmin prayed, My dear Gopal, I have taken shelter at your lotus feet, and therefore I request you to please protect my religious principles from disturbance, and at that same time save my kinsman from dying. Actually, I just remember do we finish at 6 or 6:30? Good. The next day, the elderly Brahmana was thinking deeply about this matter when the young Brahmin came to his house. The young Brahmin came to him and offered respectful obeisances. Then very humbly, folding his hands, he spoke as follows. You have promised to give your daughter in charity to me. Now you do not say anything. What is your conclusion? After the young Brahmana submitted this statement, the elderly Brahmin remained silent. Taking this opportunity, his son immediately came out with a stick to strike the younger man. I'm sorry? Yeah. The son said, Oh, you are most degraded. You want to marry my sister? Just like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon? Seeing a stick in the hand of the son, the younger Brahmin fled. The next day, however, he gathered together all the people of the village. All the people of the village then called for the elderly Brahmin and brought him to the meeting place. The young Brahmana then began to speak before them as follows. This gentleman has promised to hand over his daughter to me, yet now he does not follow his promise. Please ask him about his behavior. All the people gathered there asked the elderly Brahmana, If you have already promised to give him your daughter in charity, why are you not fulfilling your promise? You have given your word of honor. The elderly Brahmin said, My dear friends, please hear what I have to submit. I do not exactly remember making a promise like that. When the elderly Brahmin's son heard this, he took the opportunity to juggle some words. Becoming very impotent, he stood before the assembly and spoke as follows. While touring various holy places of pilgrimage, my father carried much money. Seeing the money, this rogue decided to take it away. There was no one besides this man with my father. Giving him an intoxicant known as dutura to eat, this rogue made my father mad. Having taken all my father's money, this rogue claimed that it was taken by some thief. Now he is claiming that my father has promised to give him his daughter in charity. All of you assembled here are gentlemen. Please judge whether it is befitting to offer this poor Brahmana my father's daughter. Hearing all these statements, all the people gathered there became a little doubtful. They thought it quite possible that because of attraction for riches, one might give up his religious principles. At that time, the young Brahmana said, My dear gentlemen, please hear. Just to gain victory in an argument, this man is lying. Being very satisfied with my services, this Brahmana said to me, of his own accord, I plan to hand over my daughter to you. At that time I forbade him to do this, telling him, O best of the Brahmins, I am not a fit husband for your daughter. Whereas you are a learned scholar, a rich man belonging to an aristocratic family, I am a poor man, uneducated, and with no claim to aristocracy. Still this Brahmana insisted. Again and again he asked me to accept his proposal, saying, I have given you my daughter, please accept her. I then said, please hear, you are a learned Brahmana. Your wife, friends, and relatives will never agree to this proposal. My dear sir, you will not be able to fulfill your promise. Your promise will be broken. Yet again and again the Brahmin emphasized his promise. I have offered you my daughter. Do not hesitate. She is my daughter, and I shall give her to you. Who can forbid me? At that time I concentrated my mind and requested the Brahmana to make the promise before the Gopal deity. Then this gentleman said in front of the Gopal deity, my dear Lord, please bear witness. I have offered my daughter to this Brahmana in charity. Accepting the Gopal deity as my witness, I then submitted the following at his lotus feet. If this Brahmana later hesitates to give me his daughter, my dear Lord, I shall call on you as a witness. Please note this with care and attention. Thus I have called upon a great personality in this transaction. I have asked the Supreme Godhead to be my witness. The entire world accepts the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: although the young Brahmana described himself as having no claims to aristocracy and being an uneducated common man, still he had one good qualification. He believed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was the topmost authority. He accepted the words of Lord Krishna without hesitation, and he had firm faith in the Lord's consistency. According to Prahlad Maharaj, another authority on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a staunch and faithful devotee of the Lord must be understood to be a most learned scholar. Tan manye hitam uttamam, Srimad Bhagavatam 7:524. A pure devotee who has firm faith in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered a most learned scholar, the topmost aristocrat, and the richest man in the world. All godly qualities automatically exist in such a devotee. In the preaching work of the Krishna consciousness movement, we, as the servant of the servant, of the servant, of the servant, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fully believe in the words of Krishna and his servants. The disciplic succession. In this way we are presenting the words of Krishna throughout the world, even though we are neither a rich man nor a very learned scholar. And even though we do not belong to any aristocracy, this movement is still being welcomed and is very easily spreading all over the world. Although we are very poor and have no professional source of income, Krishna supplies money whenever we need it. Whenever we need some men, Krishna supplies them. Thus it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yam labba chaparam labam manyante nadikam tata. Actually, if we can attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, we do not need anything else. We certainly do not need those things which a mundane person considers to be material assets. Taking this opportunity, the elderly Brahmin immediately confirmed that this was really true. He said, if Gopal personally comes here to serve as a witness, I shall surely give my daughter to the young Brahmana. The elderly Brahmin's son immediately confirmed this, saying, yes, this is a very nice arrangement. As the super soul within the heart of all living entities, Krishna knows everyone's desire, everyone's request, and everyone's prayer. Although all these may be contradictory, the Lord has to create a situation in which everyone will be pleased. This is an instance of a marriage negotiation between an elderly Brahmin and a youthful one. The elderly Brahmin was certainly willing to give his daughter in charity to the young Brahmin, but his son and relatives became impediments to this transaction. The elderly Brahmin considered how to get out of this situation and still offer his daughter to the young Brahmana. his son, an atheist and very cunning fellow, was thinking of how to stop the marriage. The father and son were thinking in a contradictory way, yet Krishna created a situation wherein they agreed. They both agreed that if the Gopal deity would come and serve as a witness, the daughter would be given to the young Brahmana. The elderly Brahmana thought, since Lord Krishna is very merciful, he will certainly come to prove my statement. The atheistic son thought, it is not possible for Gopal to come and bear witness. Thinking thus, the father and son agreed. The young Brahmana took this opportunity to speak. Please write this down on paper in black and white, so that you may not again change your word of honor. All the assembled people got this statement down in black and white, and taking the signatures of agreement from both of them, served as the mediators. The young Brahmana then said, will all of you gentlemen present please hear me? This elderly Brahmana is certainly truthful and is following the religious principles. He had no desire to break his promise, but fearing that his kinsman would commit suicide, he deviated from the truth. By the piety of the elderly Brahmana, I shall call the Supreme Personality of Godhead as witness. Thus I shall keep his truthful promise intact. Hearing the emphatic statement of the younger Brahmana, some atheists in the meeting began to cut jokes. However, someone else said, after all, the Lord is merciful, and if he likes, he can come. I really like that verse, because you can just see the dichotomy in the crowd and the difference between people who are naturally atheistic and the people who are naturally pious. It comes out in one verse. As like hearing the emphatic statement, young Brahmins, some atheists, they cut jokes. And the other people, isn't it heart melting? And they have so much natural faith, sukriti in their heart. They say, after all, the Lord's merciful. If he likes, he can come. What a stark contrast. After the meeting, the young Brahmana started for Vrindavan. Upon arriving there, he first offered his respectful obeisances to the deity and then narrated everything in full detail. He said, my Lord, you are the protector of Brahminical culture, and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your great mercy by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmanas. My dear Lord, I am not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I am simply thinking that the Brahmana has broken his promise, and that is giving me great pain. Purport, it was not at all the intention of the young Brahmana to get the daughter of the elderly Brahmana in marriage and thus enjoy material happiness and sense gratification. It was not for that reason that the young Brahmana went to Vrindavan to ask the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act as a witness. His only concern was that the elderly Brahmana had promised something, and if Gopal did not bear witness to that transaction, then the older Brahmana would incur a spiritual blemish. Therefore, the young Brahmana wanted protection and help from the deity. The young Brahmana was thus a pure Vaishnava, and he had no desire for sense gratification. He wanted only to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the older Brahmana, who was also a Vaishnava and very much devoted to the Lord. The young Brahmana continued, my dear sir, you are very merciful and you know everything. Therefore, kindly be a witness in this case. A person who knows things as they are and still does not bear witness becomes involved in sinful activities. Purport, the dealings between a devotee and the Lord are very simple. The young Brahmana said to the Lord, you know everything, but if you do not bear witness, you will be involved in sinful activities. There is no possibility, however, of the Lord's being involved in sinful activities. A pure devotee, even though he knows everything of the Supreme Lord, can speak with him exactly as if he were a common man. Although the dealings between the Lord and his devotee are always very simple and open, there is formality. All these things happen because of the connection between the Lord and the devotee. Krishna kahe, Lord Krishna replied, My dear Brahmana, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me. I shall certainly appear there, and at that time I shall protect the honor of both you Brahmanas by bearing witness to the promise. The young Brahmana replied, My dear sir, even if you appear there as a four-handed Vishnu deity, still none of those people will believe in your words. Only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people. Lord Krishna said, I've never heard of a deity's walking from one place to another. The Brahmana replied, that is true, but how is it that you are speaking to me although you are a deity? And then there's this verse. This is in our Padati, actually. Pratima nahi tumi, sakshat vrajendra nandana, vipralagi karatumi, akarya karana. My dear Lord, you are not a statue. You are directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Now for the sake of the old Brahmana, you can do something you have never done before. Sri Gopalji then smiled and said, My dear Brahmana, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you. Purport. The conversation between Lord Sri Krishna and the Brahmana is proof that the Lord